Hi everyone, I'm Sin from ArtScience Museum. Thank you so much for joining us today at ArtScience Late at Home. ArtScience Late is the museum's performance strand, started in 2014 to connect audiences with experimental artistic practices. Since April this year, we have been inviting artists to respond to the context of the pandemic with performance pieces presented specifically for the online platform, filmed in their home environments. In the concluding iteration of ArtScience Late at Home, it is our pleasure presenting Tania De Rozario, Marylyn and Natalie Wang in a program of spoken word that gives shape, voice, and depth to the contemporary female experience and psyche. Their works illuminate what lies hidden in the margins and portray the unique experiences of what it means to be a woman today, bringing us into the space where their defiant, uncompromising women exist. This is ArtScience Late at Home with Natalie Wang, Marylyn, and Tania De Rozario.
Hi, I'm Natalie. So I was privileged enough to have Sin from the ArtScience Museum approach me to ask if I'd be interested in putting together some poems on the female experience. And then she told me who else I would be working with, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to say no to this because I admire both Tania and Marylyn very, very greatly. And also, this is easy. I have a set of poems that I call my Angry Woman poems that I have performed in open mics in Singapore as well as outside of Singapore, and it's generally been quite well received. I just needed to select some poems from there and then film myself reading this. And because I am an absolute masochist, this did not happen. What I did instead was dig up and revise this poem that I had written during Singapore Poetry Writing Month earlier this year. This happened in April during the first month of the circuit breaker period in Singapore. And the writing prompt was the confession prompt, being to write a poem that was basically a confession to your crush. And I didn't have a crush at that point, but I was interested in exploring the idea of being seen as a confessional poet and how people make assumptions when reading a love poem, especially one that is written by, I guess, a female poet. And I wanted to also write and capture the way time just seemed to stretch during the circuit breaker period. Like, there was this, at that point, just so much uncertainty about the virus, about how long circuit breaker was going to last, how much we had to stay indoors for. And then there was all these stories, horror stories of Singaporeans being stuck overseas and having their flights being cancelled continuously, and just not being able to come home for some reason, or others who chose to stay overseas for some reason or other. Then I was just putting all this together, and I was also at that point thinking about how I've been to so many open mics, and a lot of the times you get a lot of these female poets who would just go up and apologize, like, "Hi guys, I'm sorry, I'm reading a love poem," and as though that's something that one should apologize for, So I don't really write poems as emotional or openly emotional as the one that's going to be shared next. So I thought I would try something different in that vein. So this was all filmed with my phone and mic'd only with my headphones, inbuilt mic, and my headphone has been through the washing machine more than once. So quality isn't great, and I've never done any kind of video production or filming, and I apologize in advance. But I hope the poem itself stays with you anyway. Thank you.
Dear love, I hope you are well. I'm thinking of you during this difficult time. Love, I use this endearment as though I was still entitled to use it. What does love mean when it can only exist as distant concern? How does one prove affection without the solidity of service? I can only say, uselessly, I hope you are well. The other night, I looked up the Facebook profiles of my exes to check if they were alive and was relieved to find that they were, even the ones that I don't talk to. Does this count as care? I read somewhere once that grief is unspent love, love with no place to go. This feels like too selfless a definition. It sounds too pretty, entirely too neat. What if no one had died? What happens if the ending had been acrimonious? What about all the times where I gave up the right to give love? What about the times when I never had that right to begin with? But if grief is love with no place to go, then I am brimming with it. Oozing, dripping, I sleep on a damp mattress each night. I stain everything I touch. My room has the humidity levels of a swamp. Who would want a mess like this? I'm trying to stay strong. Meanwhile, I hope that you'll stay safe. Love, me. Dear love, I hear that the stars are beautiful where you are. Love, I hear that your heart is also in mourning. Do you take long drives alone? Do you, like me, forget how much this grief wets your socks when the sun is out bright enough, but end up writing endless letters in the middle of the night? I've spent so many years avoiding writing about love because for me, at least, it all inevitably goes to pining and heartbreak. Heartbreak is cliche. Heartbreak is so painfully maudlin, and other people have written about it better than I ever could. In our time apart, I have had scores of boyfriends, some who loved me and some who could not. Most of these relationships did not last more than 3 months because at the very least, I have learned to tell early on when something will not work. In between, there were men who I may have loved or could have loved, but it all died before anything took root. Perhaps I drowned them all. Meanwhile, you have seen one girl for years and years who you continue to miss. Between the two of us, who did it correctly? Why does it feel like love is made of 1,000 little traumas? What then of the fault lines after the quake? How long are we supposed to carry them for? Love, I hope you are well, or at least that is what I want to write, but how many times can one write, I hope you are well? Repeat something enough times and it will lose all meaning. My inbox is filled with such emails. I am so tired of them, and I write this phrase yet another time because it is true whenever I address it to you, because it's the only thing I can do now. Do you feel these well wishes beaming down from some cosmic plane? Stay safe. I still think of you and your family. Love, me. Dear love, I had dinner with my aunt and she told me about the time she and my parents went to Japan together and all the men in the ryokan could not take their eyes off my mother as they ate their dinner. You know, my worst fear is to become my mother. To birth children, to always live in the shadow of self-sacrifice, to risk being left behind anyway. Someone once said, perhaps the reason why I've had so many failed relationships is because I never had the roadmap to a good one. Love, I want to know who does. Meanwhile, Instagram is full of these young girls casually banding around the word daddy, and I feel my age every time I see it. I cannot understand the daddy kink. Daddy is patriarchy. Daddy, too, is part of the problem, even if he is not my father. Another weird problem I have. The death of the author, combined with my reputation as confessional poet with a published book, means that people now think that they know me. This has led to many awkward conversations. The other day, someone referred to my affair with an almost married Japanese man, and I spent a good 10 minutes trying to understand if I had such a lapse in memory and morality that I could forget such a sordid affair. I never explained to the person that the poem in question was about my pining, and no cheating had ever occurred because it took me 2 days to figure out which poem they were referring to. Is this like having children? It doesn't matter how much I think I can strangle my writing into meaning. When they're out in the world, they do what they want. A colleague once admitted to plagiarizing my writing by sending my poems to his girlfriend to impress her. She was. He expected me to be pleased. I'm more surprised that any of my writing could have been skewed to be romantic. Once again, I hope you're well. Love, me. Love, as you know, many people are struggling. Heartbreak is such excessive indulgence in these difficult times. I remind myself of this every time I think of you. Other people are losing their jobs. Other people have wildfires in their forests and riots in their streets. Other people have the very breath stolen from them as they are hooked up in the hospital or die without ever seeing a doctor. I think of all of this and go, how dare I attempt to name this pain when I did this to myself? Love, now that I know I have always been searching for a home that felt like you, what am I supposed to do with this revelation? A friend told me to bury it. It has been so long. Love, I never told you this, but after we called it quits, I waited. See? I told you. I did this to myself. Even when I told myself that I would not, I knew there was always a place here for you. Love, even now I tell myself that I am not waiting. We have not known each other in so long. How dare I still call you love? Our friends are different. Our interests have diverged. What new habits have you picked up? What was the last book you read? The last thing you've written? Are you happy with your life now? What does it even mean to know someone? How well can you know them if you miss all the incidents too small to retell or remember, the kind that you must have been there to witness? Does it matter that I still won't take coffee but now drink copious amounts of tea? Something new about me. You remember how I dislike pet names? But then I started reading Star Wars fan fiction, and of the many awful things about the rise of Skywalker, what I'm really upset about is that the angry Sith man never used sweetheart when he chased the female protagonist across the galaxy. I wanted proof that one cannot simply kill one's past even if one has killed their father. Also, I just really want someone to call me sweetheart and mean it. Meanwhile, the closest thing I have come to romantic affection in the last 2 years is when I went grocery shopping with my married friends, and the husband accidentally called me sweetie when he mistook me for his wife as I dumped food inside of our basket. What a small, petty complaint. I count my blessings. I have my health. I have a job. I have a room which I can work in. I have so many things. What then is a lack of or misunderstanding of love? There are apps now where I can have 2D boys give me phone calls and ask me about my day. I can buy a weighted blanket or sex toys or a PlayStation as soon as they bloody restock it in stores. Love, I'm rambling about myself again and I'm sorry. Love, I want to know how your life has grown since it has branched from mine. Love, believe me when I say I hope you're doing well. Even though I'm still unclear how much of this writing is indulgence and how much of it is its sincere feeling. I want to believe that one never quite stops caring once one has decided to, even if years pass before we think of each other. How fragile is love if one can just stop one day? How frightening that we remain bound to people that we have chosen to walk away from. How many are we tethered to? And for how long? As I said, I can only send you these thoughts. I wish I knew yours. I wish you and yours the best of health during these uncertain times. As we know, we can only get through this. Yours from afar, me.
Hi, I'm Marylyn Tan, and today I'll be presenting 3 poems, one of which I haven't presented in real life before or online. The first one will be Deprivation and Succor, and it was originally written as a response, as a commissioned response to Latha's The Goddesses in the Living Room, which is a collection of short stories about women, and especially Indian women. And I will also be presenting two others from my book Gaze Back, Blades Named Delilah, and C:\users, and it goes on and on and on. You can go and look for it yourself because it's a very long quote poem. And I chose these three poems because I wanted to talk about the experiences of women, as told by Marylyn, that were fluid, that were that spoke to my experience of the body, that spoke to my experience of viscerality and sensuality, and I guess a kind of reclaiming of the violence and the restrictions that are imposed upon us in daily life. So I put together a series of videos that in my mind represented or demonstrated how these poems could, be translated into sensation or tactility in my mind. And I hope you enjoy them. Deprivation and Succor. A response to Latha's The Goddesses in the Living Room. With rose water trickling down her forehead, she said, "Do you know what it means to carry a cavity? It is to carry your pain. It is to experience all the pain in your heart and to carry it." The muscle-heavy body of the snake goddess traverses a world, the kitchen, the aircon vents, the bus route between home and hospice, crotch and collarbone, divorce and settlement, the many-mouthed, many-gendered mothers of my heart. Each forked tongue saying prayer against a man's hand, against an offhand glance, against the fondled breast puckered with sour rage. Sure, I haven't limbs left to lose, and perhaps the luckier for it. Track myself, segment by smooth scaled segment, grated on the chopping board, there for the taking, theirs for the taking. Placid, placate, placenta me with milk, with red flowers lecking stems, with sandalwood powder on my broken neck, shit spilling from the bedpan. You, the smell of a dead thing in my basket, all the incense in the world cannot mask. Who can raise a hand against the safety of a coiling insanity? Be reasonable and call it withering. Be patient and call it wasting away. Once I tasted sweetness, but it was only a punctilious violence brokered into my skin like so many embroidered punctures memorializing my television diode center knotted with obligation, warning, shame, desire, but most of all, story. Mine, and she before me, and she before her, and she. Ruin all these women. Unravel each ravaged, pinpricked hand from hand, spilling an overflow of rice across the floor. We on our knees, throwing up golden stabs of light, piercing the feeble place where we hold safe our secrets. The rosewood chest, the Milo tin under my bed, the endless labyrinth of petals, the crimson stain of a nail, the copper pot, the banal twist of hair, a single look that passes between us for a pulse, sheltering the need to behave in a certain way. Now I am one of those things. Women. Against better judgment, the snake goddess swallows her own tail, desperate for a hand in hers again. A circle with no end, praying for someone in her corner, someone who cares to split compassion and cruelty and circumstance, gambling on rebirth, every shedding skin a rumor of breaking apart in order to become. After she peels apart looking for herself, a cool hand on her brow. You already are. The snake goddess emerges, hood flaring, fully formed. For how long shall wisdom be forbidden? All the women I killed in the living room, playing at poet, priestess, but mostly philosopher. After it all happened, I named every fish after you.
c:/users/undocuments/queer bodies lbtcircuit.py queerfemalebody.py ignore.py freshman.txt open lbtcircuit.py potential queer lovers doc martins girl cute bartender bleach pompadour dancing alone unsure if hipster or lesbian national hockey player gender panic ta potential queer lovers.pen freshman.txt open queerfemalebody.py if W in potential queer lovers run rules of lesbian attraction SG define rules of lesbian attraction SG for item in gender presentation if hair length less than 10 cm masculine equals +1 if hair length more than or equals 10 cm masculine -1 type footwear if boots brogues Oxford equals true masculine equals +1 if heels pumps wedges equals true masculine equals -1 if flip-flops equals true attractive equals -1 else equals true unclassified equals +1 type clothing if binders 2 tight sports bra button down masculine equals +1 if cargo shorts attractive equals -1 type language if anglophone equals true educate.append if sinophone local equals true helicopter.append if sinophone China equals true prc.append else open ignore.py type color if pale attractive equals +1 else attractive equals -1 type body calculate free size if free size equals true normal waist equals +1 else front equals +1 append food as sin if instances contact penis less than 1 gold star equals +1 else if bisexual attractive equals -1 single-minded equals +1 likely to cheat equals +1 will leave for man equals +1 if transgender if pre-op anything but penis equals -1 potential queer lovers remove if trans man anything but penis equals +1 else lesbians who have sex with men type race if Chinese attractive equals +1 else if Malay Indian other open educational level check.py economic prospect check.py attraction score equals length masculine plus attractive plus normal weight plus educated divided by length equals tone. If attraction score more than 0.5, open allow drinks spot.py, else potential queer lovers remove. For random excuse and excuses randomize, print random excuse.
Blades named Delilah. The evolved woman has body in her hair, but no hair on her body. Deforestation must attend civilization. Samson, give me strength. We're divesting you of undergrowth. Against the toilet sink mirrors, Delilah maintains Samson's undercut, tells her, sprinkle pubes on those who talk shit about them. Samson never shaves her underarms. Practiced political move. No shave November as pragmatic maneuver. In the event she falls prey to the lung sueur, there will be ample hair to stuff into the back of her neck. How dare you have follicles? Lung sueur trims her nostrils, an act of submission, lays each clipping at your feet, inhales the dust as part of good housekeeping. Women who don't shave, PRCs, homosexuals, uglies. No shave November is grandiose gesture. Beard culture, magnificence or sideshow depends on who's under the tent. It's very simple. You pay the stranger. Wax congeals on your flesh. They tear out your pain by the roots. One Brazilian is enough to make 3 excellent voodoo effigies. Girls being pixie, gobbling in their bedrooms, each stray hair clumping on their tongues. Tensile strands clinging to saliva, gleaning each corner spool of nylon dreads, each hacking swallow, human furball. A story where she goes to hospital and they find a rat king of knots in her stomach. Was so nervous, fingernails wouldn't do. One night she wakes choking frangipani, looking back at staring eyelessness, cold, clutching the ceiling, the length straight gingerly her face, just so. So that's why she's been finding all those long black strands in their bed. All she thinks is, there's still time to cancel the appointment with the private eye. No shave November, no sex November for some. For $150, a pair of tweezers may be procured. No excuses are valid. These hairs I'm keeping, I made them myself with food that I paid for.
Hi everyone, my name is Tania De Rozario and I'm coming to you from the unceded ancestral territories of the Musqueam, Squamish and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations, colonially known as Vancouver. Thank you so much to everyone who's watching and thank you to the ArtScience Museum for having me. Tonight I'm going to be reading to you from a short comic I made called More Than Metaphor. This comic is a glimpse into the years I spent working as a life drawing model in Singapore. So hope you enjoy it. The first time I took off my clothes for strangers, it was the year 2000. I was 19 years old, in my second year of college, and stone broke. Till then, I'd only ever been on the other side of the canvas with 12 other classmates, and a teacher with questionable pedagogical approaches. I had just quit a job ghostwriting ghost stories for a shitty publishing house for shitty money. And I was tired of working for shitty clients in general. Live modeling paid upfront, $35 per hour, 3 to 5 hour slots. I was sold. The first time was uncomfortable. I walked into the room, and there, among other artists, was Liu Kang, Singapore's last remaining pioneer artist, lauded for combining Eastern and Western styles to create something original. I'd always been skeptical. 1893, Gauguin travels from Europe to Tahiti and exoticizes Tahitian women. 1953, Liu Kang travels from Singapore to Bali and exoticizes Balinese women. I was made to sit in the same position for 3 hours without a break. As far as life drawing classes went, this was unheard of. I did not want to come back. What I ended up doing instead was modeling for art colleges. It was so much more pleasant, and I got lots of work. I learned that my body was really flexible, and that I could stay still for long periods. Plus, schools liked having a variety of body types to draw, and fat models were hard to come by. I soon became a staple within the industry. When I told people what I did for a living, they often asked, "How do you not feel self-conscious?" Being comfortable in my own skin was something I'd cultivated ever since watching what body image issues did to my mother. She was obsessed with being thin and beautiful. She spent all sorts of money on it. She also hated having a fat kid. She hated it enough to start feeding me diet drugs when I was 9 years old. "Don't you want to lose weight?" No, I didn't. I didn't want to lose weight. I didn't want to inherit her sadness. I wanted to take up space. At the tail end of college, I left home without telling anyone I wasn't coming back. I moved around a lot. Having no savings meant always living in what felt like precarious situations: evictions, raised rents, unlivable infestations. Uncertainty became part of my everyday. Between commission work, modeling literally kept me alive. It also came with unexpected perks. I encountered all sorts of teaching methods. Many I would eventually integrate into my own. I met artists and teachers who would become collaborators and future contacts. And I even met a girl I ended up dating for 5 years. Another thing I did not expect was how long I'd end up doing this work. For years, it felt as though my creative career was going nowhere. I often wondered if I would ever be as successful an artist as I was a model. During this period of time, I thought often about Victorine Meurent, who remained unnamed for so many years, model first, painter second. how that painting of her became one of Manet's most famous because she had gazed back at viewers in spite of her nakedness. I thought often about how that had been considered obscene, how women of her time never found success as artists. "10 years after my first modeling gig, I had my first solo show. It was held at a gallery I once posed at. I thought of Muriente again then, grateful to have lived both the life she had lived and the life she had wanted. I thought about how she must have been a woman who did not give a fuck. A woman who would stare you down across 2 centuries, never breaking eye contact. I thought about liberty leading people across canvas soil, about Mona's knowing half smile, about the ladies of Avignon cutting us to pieces with their glares. I thought about how our bodies are so much more than metaphors in someone else's history. I thought about my own body, the one my mother had tried to make disappear. How it was that body that brought me here.
Thank you so much for sitting with us today. On the 19th of November at 9 p.m., we will be in a live stream Q&A with Marylyn Tan and Natalie Wang to talk about their practice, how they've translated their writings into an encounter for ArtScience Late at home, and how we make room for an expansive understanding of the variety of ways women show up across different intersections of their identity. This year has called for new ways of being in the world, of thinking of ourselves, and the relationships and interactions we hold with one another in their multiplicity. Pivoting our in-person performances to online presentations was a significant milestone for ArtScience Late. We're grateful for all the artists who have come into the fold of the program and shared their works with our audiences, and all of you who have been a part of the performance program. We can't wait to return in the new year, and until then, please stay safe and healthy, and we hope to see you soon.